And we're back for another episode of the Madden Report. As always, I'm your host, James Madden, joined alongside my co host, Coach Madden. And today, we are going to be diving in depth and breaking down the 2022 FIFA World Cup, which is currently being held in Qatar. We are filming this on Monday, so there have been a few matches that have already taken place, including the opening match in which Ecuador defeated Qatar 2 0. The second match in which England defeated Iran 6-2, and the third match in which the Netherlands defeated Senegal 2-0. And currently, the United States men's national team is taking on Wales in their opening match. So as we go through the show, there may be a goal or a red card or whatever it may be, and I'll definitely throw that in there to keep you guys posted and have our live reactions. So first off, we're going to jump into Group A. The Group A consists of the Netherlands, who already beat Senegal, who just lost to the Netherlands this morning, Ecuador, who defeated Qatar yesterday, and Qatar, who are the host nation, making their first World Cup appearance, and they obviously lost to Ecuador 2-0. Who do you have going through in this group?
This one's pretty self-explanatory, James. Netherlands and Ecuador, just because they've already, won their first games. But before this, I had Netherlands and Ecuador, just because those are the two powerhouses per se for this group.
Yeah, and I think the Netherlands are a given here. I think they're just such a talented squad, and year in, year out. They had a bit of a down year in 2018 during the qualifying, so they missed out in Russia. But for me, I'm going to go with Senegal. I just think Senegal has a ton of firepower up top. They're a very skilled team, a very young team, so it is interesting to see how they will fare with many of these young players making their first World Cup appearance. In Ecuador, they looked really good yesterday. In Ener Valencia, their top goal scorer, their top player, he looked good. 2 goals, a PK goal, and a header goal, and a corner kick. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's really going to come down to whether Senegal's able to beat Ecuador. Like you said, Ecuador already has the 3-point advantage on Senegal. But I think without a doubt you could put Qatar in that 4 slot. They're just not experienced enough to compete with all these 3 top teams in this group and just not talented enough. And they do have a very solid striker and goal scorer in Almoez Ali, but I don't think up top he's going to be enough for this Qatar team to make a historic run. Next up, we move over to Group B. Group B is a fun group containing our home nation, the United States men's national team. This group consists of England, the United States, Wales, and Iran.
This one, James, I think England and U.S. will come out of this one to get into the next round. Wales and Iran just not going to have enough. Wales might be able to give U.S. a game, but in the end, if the U.S. wins today, then it's going to be they only need to tie Iran. So because I don't think they're going to beat England, but it's going to be England and the U.S. in this one, in this group.
And I'm with you on this one. Obviously, England, they look dominant in their win today, 6-2 over an Iran team that some may just guess, oh, England's going to run right through them, which they did. But it was still an impressive win. Iran's definitely not an easy team to beat by any means. A tough squad defensively. They have a really good manager in Carlos Queiroz from Portugal. And this United States team, they're a young team, still trying to make a mark on the world and still trying to find a name for themselves. But they don't really have an identity. Their chemistry isn't really there just yet, but I think their talent gets them in over Wales just because Wales, they have Gareth Bale, who's been their top player for what seems like since the turn of the century. And the United States, like I said, very different from Wales. Very young. Wales, an old team, only making their second ever World Cup. Their last World Cup was in 1958, where they were eliminated in the quarterfinals. I think the biggest thing for Wales will be if they want to get in over the United States and possibly beat the United States is just the emergence of Brennan Johnson, a youngster from the Premier League, as well as Aaron Ramsey. As long as he can stay fit, stay healthy for this Welsh national team, they could have a chance. But I just think the United States talent and their management from Greg Berhalter, who's done a great job turning this team around since they lost in heartbreaking fashion and got eliminated in the 2018 cycle by the men from Trinidad and Tobago, I think Greg Berhalter would get this United States team through and into the round of 16. Next up, Group C, another fun group for different reason. Lionel Messi making what could be his last World Cup appearance with this Argentinian national team, as well as Poland, Mexico, and they're joined alongside Saudi Arabia to round off Group C.
This is another self-explanatory group, James. Argentina and Mexico are going to advance, especially Argentina. Messi is going to retire from the world this year. But there are rumors out there that he is going to keep playing for the new Miami team. come next year, but this is his last hurrah for the world stage.
Yeah, and I think Argentina is kind of a given. It's hard to pick against Messi, never mind the Argentinian national team. And they're making their 19th World Cup, a team that's been around the block. Many of these players have been in 3, 4 World Cups, whether it's Messi, Cavani, Di Maria, whoever it may be. And then this is kind of the curveball here in the second and third slot. It can go either way with Poland and Mexico. Mexico, a team that isn't really what it was a few years ago. They're really struggling. They haven't had their manager Gerardo Martino, the Argentinian, funny, but they've really struggled. They lost to the United States, lost to lost to Canada in the North American qualifying. So they haven't really found an identity. They have a ton of talent, but have performed poorly together. Chucky Lozano will really need to step up for this Mexican team if they want to have any success. And this Polish team is an interesting team. They have a star in Robert Lewandowski who's really been around the block. He's played for this team since he was 17 years old. But I think the player that's really been overshadowed and the sleeper of this Polish team is Napoli midfielder Piotr Zielinski, who's really emerged as one of the top and more underrated midfielders in Europe. So I'm going to go with Poland squeaking through in a very close battle for the second and third spot. And I'm going to go with Saudi Arabia. The only edge Saudi Arabia may have on the rest of the teams is they're more adapted to this climate in Qatar, having been another Middle East nation. But Saudi Arabia is just going to be too weak to compete with them, and I have Saudi Arabia rounding out in fourth place. Next up, Group D, we have the defending champions, the French national team, along with Denmark, Australia, and Tunisia.
This one will be France and Denmark. The Denmark typically plays well against France, so I think that win will just put them over the hump. And France lost the most prolific scorer in the world, in Karim Benzema. Sorry, James, I'm not too good with the soccer names, but he is hurt and he is not playing in the World Cup, and that's going to completely affect France, but they still get through this round.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down to whether, for first and second, it's going to come down to whether France can beat Denmark, Denmark can beat France. Denmark's beaten France twice this year. France has really struggled recently as a team, but especially against Denmark. And this Denmark team's tough. They're real tough. They're led by their captain Christian Eriksen, who thankfully is back on the field after last time he played for Denmark, his national team in the Euros. He suffered cardiac arrest. He was in the hospital for months, but thankfully he's back out there captaining their team, led by their world-class goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel, led by one of the best midfielders in Europe, again, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. So this Denmark team is going to cause a lot of problems, especially defensively for France. France is a team that prides themselves on their attack and their goal scoring, but if they're not able to score 3-4 goals, they're going to struggle with this Denmark team and this Danish team. But France is going to have to see how they fare without Karim Benzema, like you said, and Christopher Nkunku, one of their top midfielders who was a part of their World Cup team in 2018. And then, like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory. Third is going to be Australia. Fourth is probably going to be Tunisia. Both teams just don't really have enough to take on these top European squads. And Australia really, they have one solid youngster, Garang Kual, but other than that, not much going on down under in Australia. So, for me, it's pretty obvious France and Denmark headed through. Next up, Group E, we have the 5-time FIFA World Cup champions, Germany, along with Spain, Japan, and Costa Rica, one of my personal favorite groups, a group that has a lot of talent and a lot of promise to be one of the top groups in this World Cup.
I like Germany and Spain. I just think that Spain's young, but I think they made some tough, hard choices and went young. But I like that because they'll be a little bit more driven. In Germany, I just think that they're one of the world powers, and they're gonna have enough to advance.
Yeah, and it was tough for me to choose between the Spain and Japan team. Japan, not one of your household names with household players, but they're just a squad who seems to always find a way to win in the World Cup. Excuse me. They advanced out of the group stage in 2018 in Russia, and it's just really hard to pick against them. But I do have Spain getting through just because of their defensive structure and their youth. They're a really young team, a really talented team. They really prize themselves on their ability to keep a clean sheet, stop the opponents from scoring. They're a team that's going to struggle up top with their firepower. Don't know really where much of their offense and their attacks going to come from. But nonetheless, I got Spain moving through. Costa Rica is the only way they have a shot is with their world-class goalkeeper, Keylor Navas, who currently plays for PSG with Messi, Ronaldo, and Messi, Neymar, and Kylian Mbappe. But Costa Rica just one of the weaker squads in Qatar. They're a very scrappy team who stays in matches, keeps it close, keeps it tough. But I just don't see Costa Rica making much noise. So without a doubt, Germany and Spain moving through. Next up, we have Group F. We have the defending runner-ups who lost in the World Cup final 4-2 to France, Croatia, as well as Belgium, Canada, and Morocco in this to round out this group.
I'm going up. I'm going with Croatia and Belgium in this one. They're just far and above better than the other two, Canada and Morocco, and I just think that their experience is gonna get them through.
Yeah, and I'm with you on this one. I think Croatia were really last year. They didn't. Not many people expected them to go as far as they did. Definitely a favorite to make a deep run, but not as far as they went into the runner-up title. But you got Belgium, a team that has had a lot of high hopes in the 2018 World Cup, and just fell just short, finishing in third place after beating England in the third place game. Excuse me. And this is really the last shot for their golden generation to win the World Cup because you got Kevin De Bruyne, Thibaut Courtois, a bunch of Romelu Lukaku who might not play until the round of 16 due to injuries he suffered during club play with Chelsea. But I think Belgium definitely gets through and Croatia gets through just because of how much more talent they have. Croatia has quite possibly the best midfielding trio in the world with Brozovic, Kovacic, and Luka Modric. And you look at Canada. Canada's a team only making their second World Cup appearance. Last was in 1986, They're led by English manager John Herdman. They, in my opinion, could quite possibly have the best attack in this World Cup. It's very, very strong. They have Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, who, similar to Lukaku, might not play until the round of 16 due to injuries, Tejan Buchanan and Kyle Larin. So that's an interesting team to monitor. Definitely an upset watch. You could watch maybe beat a Belgium team who doesn't have one of their top attackers and maybe might not be able to keep up with them if it's kind of a shootout. Then you go to Morocco. Morocco is a team that ran right through the African qualifying, a team that was very dominant in Africa. Then they sacked their manager, hired the new manager, Walid Regragui, who has really installed a great mixture of both technical ability and athleticism and they fired their old manager due to an ongoing feud with star player Hakim Ziyech. So, a lot could go on in this group, but for me it's Croatia and Belgium. Next up, Group G, a group that has the perennial powerhouse and perennial favorites, the Brazilian national team, going alongside Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon.
I just like the two powers here, James. World Cup powers, Brazil and Switzerland. They have the experience, and I just think that the other two aren't going to have enough to get through.
And this is one of my favorite groups. Cameroon, I have finished in fourth place. They're just not a great squad. They haven't beaten a top 100 non-African team since 2014. They haven't made the World Cup since 2014, where they're also eliminated in the group stage, in the same group as Brazil. But I'm going to go with Brazil and Serbia. This is a really tough choice. Serbia and Switzerland, two very good teams, two very solid teams. I think both of them in any other group could make it through. Switzerland just falling victim to a very strong and a very solid group. But I'm going to go Serbia just because of their two clinical forwards in Mitrovic and Vlahovic. I think they're going to be too much. They have a very strong midfield. It seems like all those Eastern European teams always do. But I'm going to go, obviously, with Brazil making it out. They are the betting favorites in Vegas. They're the favorites amongst many soccer fans across the world. So for me, it's going to be Brazil and Serbia. Serbia necking out Switzerland by just a hair. Two very good squads that, like I said, Switzerland just falls victim to a very strong group. And before I move to Group H, I'm just going to throw this out there. United States team currently tied 0-0 in the 30th minute. Two players in the United States team have been booked, Weston McKennie in the 9th minute and Serginho Dest in the 11th minute. So something to monitor as we go forward, but go USA. Next up, we have Group H, another fun group for Ronaldo, who's, like Messi, like his rival, making what could quite possibly be his last World Cup appearance. We have Portugal, the men from Ghana, one of the fan favorites every year, and Uruguay, and then to round off this very strong group in which I feel all four teams are worthy of getting through is South Korea.
James, I like, actually, this is going to be a little bit of an upset, I think. I like the South Korean team with Portugal to advance. I just think that South Korea is fighting for a place in this world amongst the bigger powers, but I think that they're gonna get through with Portugal.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with Portugal because even whether you believe it or not, it's just hard to pick against Ronaldo in any World Cup, especially in what could be his last. And I'm going to go with Portugal. They're a young squad, but very talented. They have really struggled. Fernando Santos has only won one match in his last 15 in a major world event, including the World Cup, Euros 2021, whatever it may be. And then I'm going to also go with Ghana. I really like this Ghana team. They're very young, very talented. They have Arsenal's Thomas Partey. That's their player to watch. But one player is an under-the-radar hidden talent for them is Ajax's Mohamed Kudus. And he's just a really strong midfielder, has a great feel for the game. He's very young, only 19 years old. But I think that they have just so much talent and so much speed that it's going to be tough for a team like Uruguay to keep up with them. And other players, Inaki Williams, who will also be huge if they have any success at this World Cup. Next up, we got Uruguay, who's a solid squad every year, one of the soccer powerhouses of the world. They have their veteran Luis Suarez, who's really made a name for himself in the soccer world for many different reasons. But they're another team that's really hard to pick against only because they always seem to find success in the World Cup, whether it's winning games because of pure talent or just gritting it out and finding a way to win. But without a doubt, Uruguay's a tough out. In South Korea, Heung-min Son, one of the best player, one of the best wingers in the world, he's just coming off an injury, coming off a concussion, which he suffered with Tottenham Hotspur, which is my team, in the Champions League. The Napoli's Kim Min-jae, another really underrated center back for South Korea. So it'll just be really interesting to see how they pan out. But I'm going to go with Portugal and Ghana getting through in Group H. And next up, finally, for our final segment of the show, the United States men's national team. How do you feel about this U.S. men's national team heading into this World Cup?
They're young. But they're tough. I think they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna make it out of the 16, but through the 16, I should say. But they're gonna give it a go and get out. They'll get out of the group play and then see where they go from there. But they're probably one World Cup away from competing for a World Cup title.
Yeah, and I'm agree with you. I think this year is kind of a rebuild year for them. They're still really young, still really talented. But I think next year, 2026, when it comes to the home soil with a joint host it's going to be Canada, the United States, and Mexico. I think that it's going to be the United States' chance. And, we'll look at who the United States sent out there as their starting 11. So the starting 11 today, they had up front, the front three in the attack was Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, and Timothy Weah. The midfield was Yudis Musa, Tyler Adams, and Weston McKennie, my personal favorite player. And in the back, you got Anthony Robinson, Tim Ream, Walker Zimmerman, and Sergiño Dest. And then, as always, the longtime goalkeeper, former New England Revolution goalkeeper, Matt Turner, in the net. So I think this United States team has promise to make it out of the group, make it to the round of 16. And once you make it there, anything can happen. But right now, it looks like they would match up with the Netherlands, which is already kind of a matchup nightmare for them. The Netherlands just a lot more talent, a lot more experience. But as an American, I have to stay true to the United States and stay hopeful, and it's all wishful thinking, but hopefully the United States can make some noise in this World Cup and put us back on the national stage where we belong. Well, thank you for tuning into the Madden Report. As always, I'm your host, James Madden, joined alongside my co-host, Coach Madden, and we should be in store for a fun World Cup this year. Hopefully, like I said, the United States continues to make a name for themselves on the national stage in the soccer world. But without a doubt, thank you for tuning in, and make sure to tune in to the next episode. Oh, the United States scored.
Who scored?
Oh, they just scored. I missed it.
That's fine.
Timothy Weah, assistant. Oh, I just missed it.
That's fine.
I'm gonna
but that was good though. What you got in earlier about the cards and all that.
Oh yeah, I wanted to throw something in there.
Oh, you're good.